After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learns astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the lagna and the meridian center MC, and he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So, my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions, and after learning those tips, I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology, for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest.
Welcome to Sastry Karra's Astrological series. This is the third presentation about multiple planets impact analysis. This is the third example that I am taking to show how multiple planets, when there are more than 4 planets in one particular house, how it is going to impact the native. This example is something special. The reason is being this is the chart of Rajiv Gandhi. Rajiv Gandhi is the son of Indira Gandhi. Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister for 2 decades, for India's Prime Minister for almost 2 decades. So Rajiv Gandhi, is born in a wealthy, famous family. So if a person, this type of chart, when the native is born in a wealthy family, naturally the way the life with that particular native goes through is different from the same person with the same chart born in a middle class family. That's the reason why I want to show you is that when you look at any chart, you got to know first about the native socio-economic conditions, what is the native's family background, what is the native's financial situation, and what is the how much in the society, how much importance does that native's family have. Without knowing any of these things, please don't rush to conclude, and don't rush to conclude with any the decisions or any opinions. Now, going back to the chart, this is Rajiv Gandhi chart. He was born on August 20th, 1944. So, when you look at the chart in the first house, what you see is Sun, the first house lord Sun is residing in the first house only. Sun is co-joined with Jupiter, Moon, Venus and Mercury, 4 planets apart from Sun. So altogether there are 5 planets in the first house. That means all these 5 planets are surely looking directly at the 7th house. That's the very important thing you have to keep in mind, is that 7th house is nothing but the house of your Kalatrastanamo, or the house of spouse. So this particular native with so many planets looking at the 7th house always indicates that there's something special when it comes to spouse. So we are not interested at this point about that, so let's not worry about that part of it. Now let's go and see in the first house the planets that are there, how are they doing. Sun is the lord of the first house. Sun is residing in its own house. So with Sun being the first house lord and Sun residing in the own house, it indicates that this particular native, theoretically, native has the ability to become a leader and has the ability to portray himself in the society as a leader, and might have a lot of followers because of his leadership skills. That's the first thing we see when you look at Sun, and we all know that this guy is not that same. Next is Jupiter. Jupiter is the lord of 5th and 8th house of 5, 6, 7 and 8. 5th and 8th house lord is Jupiter. 8th house is Marakasthanamu and it's not a good house. So the first house lord has co-joined with the 8th house lord in the first house. That's the one thing that you have to keep in mind. And the next one is Moon. Moon is the 12th house lord. 12th house lord residing in the first house. That's fine with it. As of now, it's okay. Mercury. Mercury is the second and 11th house lord. Second is Kutumbasthanamu and Dhanasthanamu. 11th is Labasthanamu. Mercury indicates the speech and communications. So that's what Mercury tells it. It's in the first house. So this tells you that the native will have good communication skills, will have a good Kutumbasthanamu means good family, and Dhanasthanamu enough wealth, enough money to from the family inheritance. Then next, the last one comes is Venus. Venus is the third house lord and the 10th house lord. Remember, whenever I have seen a lot of people, whenever they see Venus being the 10th house lord, the very first thing they say is that this particular native will shine in entertainment industry. Not all of them. Not all of them can shine in entertainment industry just because Venus is the 10th house lord. For this particular native, Venus is in the 10th house lord, residing in the first house. Theoretically, based upon the astrological principles, when Venus is the first house, is the 10th house lord residing in the first house, it indicates that this particular native has a lot of interest in entertainment industry, music, arts, and the career will be something that is very close to these things. And if the native goes to science and education, has a good education background, then it will be something that's pertaining to engineering, because engineering deals with creativity. That's what Venus does it. Engineering deals with design. That's what Venus does it. So, and Mercury, the second house lord, the communication, speech and communication, because Mercury is also co-joined with Venus, and that too in the first house, and Mercury being the second house lord, you can say that this particular native might have a career where speech and communication is the primary source for earning money. So when you say communication, it can be if it is an engineer, then it can be a electronic engineer or a radio engineer or a computer programmer. Computers comes under communications too. So that's one of those things. Or if it is a speech, and if it's not an engineer or something else, then you would have a nice orator, so he can give a beautiful speech, all these things. So when you look at it, assuming that there are not that many planets in the first house, if Mercury and Venus and the Sun, only three of these three are in the first house, this particular native would have been completely different. Just because Jupiter, the 8th house lord, that's very important here, just because the 8th house lord is residing there, everything got messed up. And as if that's not sufficient, you go and look at 11th house. In 11th house, you see Saturn residing there. Saturn is the 6th and 7th house lord residing in the 11th house. That means Saturn's third aspect is on the first house, where the 5 important planets are residing. Already with 5 important planets residing in one single house, there is a Graha Yuddha going on. There is a clash between the planets. And as if that is not sufficient, you got a malefic Saturn looking at that particular house. And whenever Saturn looks at Jupiter, whenever there is any sort of a relationship between Saturn and Jupiter, the possibilities are very high for disappointments and hurdles. Here it is the disappointment and hurdles are in the first house, because Jupiter is residing in the first house, and in the fifth house. Fifth house is higher education, father, and children, 3 of them. And 8th house is the death, period. So now comes what exactly these 5 planets in the first house is did it for this particular native. We know the history, the life history of Rajiv Gandhi. The next step, what I'm going to do is to take the Bhirugu Chakra Paddhati, identify the events that happened during whatever the events that had happened in his life, and then look at the transit analysis and see, because of these multiple planets residing in the first house, how the transit planets help in a positive way for that event to happen or a negative way for that event to happen. I'm going to explain to you these multiple planets, how they are doing, and then how the transit planets are supporting or not supporting. Also, I'm going to look at the important events and go to the Vimsottari Dasa and say like, okay, when this particular important event happened, what is the Vimsotari Mahadasa, what's the Antardasa. Those are the things that I'm going to see. The reason is that when any of these important events happen in this particular native's life, there is one thing that I can say is that there is a direct relationship between the event and one of the 5 planets residing in the first house, because the event has happened to self, to that particular native. So whatever happens is pertaining to the first house only. Let me go and more in detail and see like how these things are going to happen. Let's now talk about the multiple planets in the same house. When you look at it, the Leo is the Lagna or Simha Lagna, and in Simha or Leo, what you can see is apart from the ascendant, you see Sun, Jupiter, Moon, Venus, and Mercury. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 planets all together. Here, if you look at the chart, what you can see is in the chart, you can see that there are 5 planets all together in one house, apart from the Lagna, whatever the ascendant is. So let's go and now look at the inclination of these 5 planets. When you look at the inclination, Sun, the house lord is Sun, and Sun is at 3 degrees inclination. That means the Sun is in Rashi Shandhi. So there is no guarantee. The way the Sun behaves is sometimes it behaves as if it is in the first house, and sometimes it behaves as if it is in the second house. So the Sun is, the role of the Sun here, if you can see in the chart, is very dynamic. It has no, you cannot steadily say that the Sun is in the first house or the Sun is in the second house. Because of that reason, you can, if you see the native's life path, he was a leader for some time, and sometime he was forced to be a leader. He was never a leader all by himself or from his passion or from his heart. He does not want to become a leader, but he was forced to be a leader. That's why the main reason for that is because the Sun, the Lagnadhipati Sun, is in Rasi Sandhi. Next, you go and see the next important planet is Jupiter. Jupiter is at 12 degrees. Jupiter is the lord of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5th and 8th house lord Jupiter. If you look at it, it is 5th and 8th house lord Jupiter. Jupiter is in 12 degrees. That means just above the Rashi Sandhi. Then Moon. Moon is the 12th house lord. Moon is in 16 degrees. And then the important thing is Venus. Venus is the 3rd house lord and the 10th house lord. See, Venus is the 10th house lord. The 10th house lord is in 18 degrees. That means the 10th house lord is very close to Moon. So his mind and the 10th house lord Venus, they are very, very close to each other. That's the reason why you notice, if you notice his life, Rajiv Gandhi. Yeah, Rajiv Gandhi's life, he's no way interested to enter into politics. He has no desire to become the leader because the Sun is in Rasi Sandhi. Sun is not close to Moon, or Sun is nowhere close to Moon. It is almost like how many? 13 degrees away. Whereas if you look at it from Moon to Venus, Venus is the 10th house lord, is only 5 degrees. No, 4, 6, 7, 8, 2 degrees, only 2 degrees difference. So naturally, his intention is always something, a career that is something related to Venus. Venus here is entertainment, creativity. Okay, so we don't know exactly what exactly he wants to become, but so one more thing you have to look at is the last planet is Mercury. Mercury is the 2nd house lord and the 11th house lord. 2nd and 11th house lord Mercury is at 28 degrees, edge of it. So if you look at it, it is edge of 28th degree. That means it is also in a Rashi Sandhi. Because it is 28th degree, that means it is very close to its own house, which is the 2nd house. Sun is at 3 degrees. That means it is very close to the 12th house. It is wobbling between the 12th house and 1st house. And in 12th house, you have a Rahu there. That's the reason why, see, whenever there is any direct relationship or a co-joining with Rahu and that too it's a Lagnadipati, so then that particular native will not have a stable life. The native will not have something in his mind to say that I want to achieve this in my life. He will never, that he or she, the native will never have any such things. And this is the best example. Rajiv Gandhi is the best example to show that when there are multiple 5 planets in particularly in the first house, and the first house lord has been afflicted because of Rashi, and the second house lord Mercury is also in Rashi, so the native will have no steady thoughts of what he or she wants to be in his life, what towards the native wants to achieve in his life. There won't be anything that the native can clearly say, number one. Number two, because the second house lord is unstable, the second house leads with Dhanasthanama and Kutumbasthanama. So even in the family also, when it comes to the family also, the native has no stable mind to say that it's a time to start a family and it's the time that I would like to spend my life with my family members. Apart from that, you have the 12th house lord moon residing in the first house. Remember, in 12th house we saw Rahu there, and in the first house lord sun is in Rashi with the 12th house, and moon, the 12th house lord, is inside the sun in the first house, co-joined with the Rashi first house lord. And the most important is the 8th house lord Jupiter. Jupiter is also in the first house. So when you look at this, the most important thing that you can see is that sun is in Rashi, second house lord Mercury is in Rashi, the 8th house lord Jupiter is in the first house, and the most important moon mind, which is the 12th house lord, is also in the first house. So you have seen 5 important planets in the first house. And had this native Rajiv Gandhi had not been a son of Indira Gandhi or a big or rich family, had he not born in a rich family, his life would have been a mess, completely mess, struggling day in, day out.
Now that we have checked the chart, let's go and look at the Vimsottari Dasa first. Let's do the analysis of the Vimsottari Dasa for each and every major event. Here for Rajiv Gandhi, I have picked 4 major events in his life. There are a lot of other events, but I picked the 4 important ones. The first one is between August 1965 and 1967, Rajiv Gandhi returned from United Kingdom, trained as a pilot and worked in Indian Airlines. So let's go and look at what's that. When that particular stuff happened, 1965 to 1975, what you can see is the moon Mahadasa is running all the way from 1965 to 1960. Where is it? 1965 to 1975. Yes, that means the 10-year moon Mahadasa is running. And what you can see here is 1 second, returning to India, it's on moon. So moon Mahadasa and moon Antardasa is bit up to 66. Then you got from 66, oh, it's still Mahars. Okay, Rahu is the guy. Moon Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa. It started in 1966 October and completed in 1968 March. So Mars and Rahu, Mars is the one that had 1966 February. So let's go and look at Rahu. First of all, Rahu is in the 12th house, and the owner of the 12th house is moon. That's the Mahadasa running, and moon is in the first house. So naturally, when the 12th house lord is having a direct impact on moon, and with Rahu residing in the 12th house, you can expect something odd happening here. That's exactly what happened. He returned from United Kingdom. He didn't complete his education. He came back. Remember, he did not complete his education because the 5th house, the 4th house lord Mars is in the 2nd house, and the 5th house lord Jupiter is in the 1st house, and Jupiter is getting a direct aspect, 3rd aspect from Saturn. So naturally the 5th house higher, he won't have the ability to pursue a higher education, even though he's so wealthy and he can afford to go to a college. Even then he was not able to do it. So the next thing you do is he got married. Yeah, Between 1967 and 1969, he got married. We don't know exact, at least I don't know the exact date when he got married. But remember, he got married again during the Moon Mahadasa. Moon is the 12th house lord. 12th house lord, when you look at the marital life, 12th house deals with pleasures of bed, and Rahu is residing there. So the pleasures of bed is something that he will receive which from some, he by doing something that is against the social norm during that era. He had fell in love with an European Italian girl, and being a Kashmiri Brahmin, he wants to get married to a Italian Christian. So naturally, that is against the rules of the Kashmiri Brahmin community. So Rahu, look at Rahu, he did what he is supposed to do by marrying a Italian Christian girl. Rahu has made sure that the native gets the pleasures of bed through that girl. And that was happened somewhere. Some people say it happened in 67 through 69. Rahu Mahadasa is Antardasa is all the way till 1968 March, and then comes the Jupiter. So I'm fully confident that whatever that is supposed to happen was completed by March 1968 unofficially, and officially he might have got married later. That doesn't matter. But from an astrological perspective, he had the ability to get married and had the pressures of bread somewhere before 1968 March. The next thing that comes is him being elected as Prime Minister in 1981. That's exactly, his birthday is 20th August and he was elected on 17th August. Just so we will take it as 20th August of 1981. If you look at the Vimsvattari Dasa, it's a Mars Mahadasa that is running. Mars is the 12, 11, 10, 9th. The 9th and the 4th house lord Mars is running, and Sun Maha Antardasa. See, that's the reason why he became the prime minister. He got elected as a prime minister even though he does not want it. Sun is the Lagnadipati and residing in its own house, and we all know that Sun means a leader, portrays himself as a leader. So he got elected as a leader for the country during August 1981. The last thing that I would like to talk about is the day he got assassinated. It was on 21st May 1991. When you look at the Mahadasa, gosh, Rahu Antar Mahadasa is running, great, and Mercury Antardasa is running, and Moon Pratyantara Dasa is running. First of all, Rahu, the Terminator, is residing in the 12th house, having a direct aspect on the 6th house. So that Rahu Terminator has done his job of terminating the native's life. That's the first thing he did it. Second thing is Mercury is the second house lord. Second house also deals with the Marakasthanamo. So second house lord is Marakasthanadipati. So you are having the Antardasa of Marakasthanadipati. And Marakasthanadipati is residing in the first house with the first house lord. So naturally the whatever the death is self. And then comes Moon, and okay, Moon is the 12th house lord or mind, and Moon is in the first house. So 12th house deals with hospitalization, the first thing. Second thing, so this particular native's death would be something that's dealing with hospitalization. But we know he got assassinated. So the question comes is, why was the death so violent? If you look at it, in the second house, Mars is residing. Whenever and Jupiter, the 8th house lord, remember there is a rule that which I am going to tell in later. Jupiter has spoiled the second house. So in a spoiled second house, Mars is residing, and Jupiter is the 8th house lord spoiling the second house. With Mars being there, the death will be very violent. So there you go. That's the reason why this particular native's death has been so violent. If you go further down and look at the Pratyantara Dasha and Sukshmantara Dasha, you may find that on 21st May, when you go through the whole path, somewhere there will be Mars dasa, some minimal dasa happening there somewhere, and that might be the way, that might be the reason why his death was very violent. Let's now go and look at the Bihuru Chakra Paddhati for this particular native's chart and see if through Bihuru Chakra Paddhati is there a way we can predict the possibility for this particular native to get married, or at least to find out the reasons why the native could not get married until now. If you look at the Bihuru Chakra Paddhati, the native completed his 23rd birthday in 2002. In 2002, the Vimsotari Mahadasa, the Mahadasa that is running in 2002 is Venus Mahadasa running, and we know that Venus is no way helped the native to get married. So the only possibility for this particular native to get married is during the Mercury, when Mercury activates the 12th house. Mercury being the 4th and 7th house lord, residing in 6th house and having a direct aspect on the 12th house, it activated the 12th house for this particular native during that period. And even though the 12th Mercury is also co-joined with the 12th house lord Saturn, so that was the first possibility for this particular native to get married was after the 23rd birthday and before the 24th birthday. We knew that the native couldn't get married. So let's go all the way and see. During the Venus Mahadasa all the way till August 2015, the chances are close to zero for him to get married. So let's go and look at the next cycle ruler Sun. Cycle ruler Sun, when it in August 2016 through August 2017, cycle ruler Sun activates the 2nd house. So when you look at it, the 2nd house from Rashi Lagna is Aries, owned by Mars, and Mars is in the 4th house. No way doing. And the 2nd house from natal Sun is the 7th house, because Sun is the 6th house lord residing in 6th house. The 2nd house is the 7th house, but the 7th house lord Mercury is also residing in the 6th house, and the whole 6th house got spoiled. So even though Sun activated the 2nd house from its natal position between August 2016 and 2017, because the lord got afflicted, and not only that, even Saturn and Jupiter had spoiled the 7th house since it is next to their residence. If Sun activating this house had no way impact on it, and the native could not get married.
There are 4 important events that I have picked up from this particular native's past life from Wikipedia. The first and the important thing that I found out was that in 1960, between 1965 August and 1967 August, between 1965 August and 1967 August, the native who was in United Kingdom pursuing his education, basic education, that is the undergraduate degree, stopped his education and returned from UK and mentioned that he wants to become a pilot. So he attended the pilot training courses during just 2 years. He attended the pilot training courses, and because he is the son of the Prime Minister of India, he got the job as a pilot in Indian Airlines. So the most important thing you see is at the age of, after completing the 21st birthday, which is August 1965, and before his 23rd birthday, which is August 1967, he returned to India. That is, number 1, he got trained as a pilot. Number 2, he got the job as a pilot in Indian Airlines. So there are 3 events that happened in these 2 years. That's the first thing we have to analyze, like how are these multiple planets, was there any impact of these multiple planets for this event to happen. The next thing, this is very important in anyone's life, is getting married. They two got married somewhere in 68. That's exactly what the Wikipedia says. So we don't know exactly the month. It was not, at least I don't know exactly the month when the Neetu got married. So the Neetu completed his 23rd birthday in August 1967, and the Neetu completed his 25th birthday in August 1969. So between 1967 and 1969, the Neetu got married. Remember, this is very important here. The Neetu got married, according to Behavioural Chakra Paddhati, the Neetu got married either before the cycle ruler, when the cycle ruler was Mercury and Mercury activated the 12th house, or cycle ruler was Venus and Venus activated the first house. We got to look at like what could be the most possible thing for this event to happen, which I'm going to explain in Behavioural Chakra Paddhati more in detail. When I go through each and every event, I'm going to explain to you what is the most possible impact, for the most possible planetary combination that has resulted in the event of him getting married. After that, somewhere in 1981, August 1981, yes, he got elected as Prime Minister. That is because his mother died between 1979 and 1981. That means after his 35th birthday and before his 37th birthday, his mother died. So he was elected as Prime Minister of India on 17th August 1981. That's what I heard it here. And then the last event that I documented it and want to discuss is he got assassinated on 21st May 1991. 21st May 1991 means is after the day after his 46th birthday and before 47th birthday. And when I look at the Behavioural Chakra Paddhati, Sun is the ruler, cycle ruler, and Sun activates the 11th house. This is very, very, very important. I'm telling you, the reason why I said that this particular event is assassination, the Neetu getting assassinated is very important, is because when you look at it, Sun, the Lagnadhipati, it activated the 11th house, and because Lagnadhipati is residing in his own, in the first house itself, the activation got double amplified. Once the Sun activates the 11th house from the Rashi Lagna. Second, the Sun activates the 11th house from its natal position. That means the Sun has activated 2 times the 11th house, the same house. So the 11th house is very important here, and you got to figure it out, like why did the assassination happen when it has activated the 11th house. Let me go in detail and explain to you how this happened. Let's now start looking at the transit analysis. Remember, I told you that whenever an event happens, you got to look at the transit planets. How far is that event going to be supported by the transit planets? First of all, you look at the event that when he returned from UK and trained as a pilot. First of all, that means he returned from UK, and if you look at his what you call the Vimsottari Dasa, the first of all, before we go to Vimsottari Dasa, let's look at the transit Saturn during 1965 and 1967. In transit Saturn was in Aquarius, that is the 7th house in 65, and in 66 and 67 it's in the 8th house. So the 6th and 7th house lord is in the 8th house and having a direct aspect on the 2nd house. My goodness. Second house, that means Saturn is having a direct aspect on 2nd house, which is Kutumbasthanamo and Dhanasthanamo, and this is something surprising, and Mars is residing there. This is something surprising to see that during that period when Saturn is the 7th house lord residing in that 8th house and looking at the 2nd house, and that to Mars being there, it's something surprising to see that, because 8th house deals with the Marakasthanamo and 2nd house is Marakasthanamo and 8th house is the house of death, and Saturn being there with Mars, looking at Mars, it's something that surprised me, that why did it happen, like why didn't a event that would have a threat to his life, it did not happen. The reason being is, if you look at it, 2nd house is not only Marakasthanamo, it's also Kutumbasthanamo, Dhanasthanamo, and Mars is the lord of the 9th house.
Ninth house is Dharmasthanadipati. So 12, 11, ninth house, that when the Dharmasthanadipati is in the Kutumba Sthanamo, first of all, whatever has to happen will be, you can say whether if it is not if it is afflicted, then that Kutumbam, whatever, when he starts a family, it will be against the Dharma. That's for sure. Now with Saturn looking at it, yes, it got afflicted. Mars, looking at Mars in the second house, it got afflicted, and that too from the 8th house. Remember, the 8th house also deals with the secret dealings or secret affairs. So you all know it, that the things whatever has happened for him in United Kingdom while he was a student, or had a secret affair with the girl from Italy, and then that's ended up in getting married. So you can see it all this way. 67 and 69 is when he got married. So Saturn, transit Saturn residing in the 8th house, looking at the second house, amplified the role of ninth house lord Dharmasthanamo, go against the Dharma and start a family. That's what happened. So when this event happened, Rahu is in the 12th house. So naturally the 12th house is pleasures of bed. We can understand that. So let's go and look at the second event, that is between 80 and 81. That's when transit 80 and 81, he was elected as the Prime Minister of India. So go and look at this. How could Saturn impact this particular one? Saturn, again, look at it. His transit Saturn is in the second house, co-joined with the 9th house lord, 4th and 9th house lord, and having a direct aspect on the 8th house. Jupiter owns it. And not only that, from second house, transit Saturn's third aspect is on the what you call the 4th house, and from second house, transit Saturn's 10th aspect is on the 11th house, where natal Saturn is residing. When you have Saturn in such a very high complicated way of looking at some of the important houses and having a connection with some of the important planets, and particularly with a natal Saturn, transit Saturn would always try to do something odd. He was elected as a prime minister, not that he wants to become a prime minister. He was just forced to elect as a prime minister. That's what you see here. The next one is the assassination. This is very bad. If you look at the assassination during August 1990, Saturn was in the 5th house, having a direct aspect with natal Saturn. Transit Saturn is in the 5th house, having a direct aspect with natal Saturn. And also the third aspect is on the 7th house. 7th house is Marakasthanamu, the house that it owns. And in 1991 August, means before his death, what you can see is that transit Saturn has moved to Capricorn, which is the 6th house, Rogasthanamo, but it is having a direct aspect. Since it moved to 6th house, it has a direct aspect on the 12th house. 12th house is hospitalization, and in 12th house you see natal Rahu, which is the terminator. So what you can see is that when transit Saturn moved from 5th house to the 6th house, or during the Rashi Sandhi, when it was between the 5th house and the 6th house, transit Saturn is between the 5th and 6th houses, that's when the assassination event has happened, primarily because being in Rashi Sandhi, it is looking at the natal Saturn partially, who is the 7th house lord, Marakasthanamo, and he is also looking at the 12th house partially, where natal Rahu is residing, which is the terminator. So you can see how transit Saturn has played its role when it comes to these major events. Let's now go and look at transit Rahu, particularly after 1989. Because that's when the assassination happened. During 1990, transit Rahu is in the 6th house, and in 1991 he is in the 5th house. Remember, natal transit Saturn is first in the 5th house. When transit Saturn is in the 5th house, transit Rahu is in the 6th house. When transit Rahu moved from 5th to 6th house to the 5th house, transit Saturn moved from 5th house to 6th house. That means during the Rashi Sandhi, if the Rashi Sandhi is for transit Rahu, it's going to, somehow it is touching with transit Saturn. And if the Rashi Sandhi is for transit Saturn, somehow it is touching transit Rahu. That complicated joining of transit Saturn and transit Rahu between that small Rashi Sandhi period, and there is a direct relationship between, for these transit planets, either directly or indirectly, with the natal Saturn and natal Rahu, and all those things are in the 12th, natal Rahu being in 12th house and transit natal Saturn being the 7th house lord. You can this particular, whatever the event has happened in May 1991, the assassination, it's something called as death, the end of life. That's what Marakasthanamo. So you can see that that's why it happened. Now let's go and look at transit Jupiter. The reason why I want to look at Jupiter is because natal Jupiter is the 8th house lord, Marakasthanadipati, and in 1990 August he is in Cancer. That's the 12th house, co-joined with natal Rahu, and by 1991 August it moved to the 1st house, self. So the 8th house lord, natal Jupiter is already there, the 8th house lord. Now transit Jupiter is entering the 1st house. So while in May 1991, to be more precise, transit Saturn, transit Rahu and transit Jupiter, all the three of them were mostly in Rashi Sandhi. That's the reason why when the 8th house lord Jupiter, the Rahu, the Terminator, the 7th house lord Saturn, when all the three are in Rashi Sandhi, the death has become something that is not common and not anticipated. So that when all the three were in the Rashi Sandhi, that small duration was very crucial for this particular native, and unfortunately the death has been happened because the Saturn, Rahu and Jupiter are very active at that time, and we can't say anything more than that. Let me now go and look at the most important Bihuruga Sarla Paddhati rules, specifically related to the two slow moving planets, because we already seen that Saturn, Rahu and Jupiter, the transit planets, all the three transit planets, how it had made the native to end up his life. Now let's go and look at the two important rules related to Saturn. The first one says, wherever Saturn resides, he shouts that he is the emperor of that house. So Saturn is in the 11th house, the 7th house lord is in the 11th house, Labhasthanamo. So it has nothing to do with his death. So the second Saturn rule, BSP rule, is Saturn spoils or destroys the house next to its natal residence. Saturn is in the 11th house, so it will spoil the 12th house. So the 12th house is foreign travels. You know that he did not reside, he did not permanently took the residence in a foreign country. 12th house is hospitalizations, and 12th house is the moksha sthanamo. Because the 12th house got spoiled by Saturn and Rahu, the Terminator is residing there. This Rahu is residing in a spoiled house, has become more stronger. That's the reason why when transit Jupiter was in Rashi Sandhi between Cancer and Leo, and when transit Saturn is in a Rashi Sandhi between Sagittarius and Capricorn, and transit Rahu is in a Rashi Sandhi between Capricorn and Sagittarius, when all the three are there in a Rashi Sandhi, somehow or the other they are having a relationship with natal Jupiter, natal Rahu, and natal Rahu is in the 12th house, residing in a house that is thoroughly spoiled, the Terminator. So the 12th house, the moksha sthanamo, is sure to happen during that period, during that transit, when the transit planets came appropriately. The next BSP rule that I want to talk about is the Jupiter. The reason why I want to emphasize this Jupiter BSP rule is because if Jupiter is afflicted only if it is afflicted, then it spoils or destroys the house next to its residence. So we know, first of all, we have to say that why is Jupiter afflicted? That's the first question that we need to ask, is why are we saying that Jupiter is afflicted? The reason why we say that Jupiter is afflicted is because if you look at Jupiter, the Saturn is in the 11th house, and Saturn, its third aspect from 11th house is on first house. That is where natal Jupiter is residing. Jupiter already is his 8th house lord, so already he is a malefic planet for sure, functional malefic planet, and now it has the aspect of a natural malefic Saturn, and because natural malefic Saturn is aspecting the functional malefic Jupiter, Jupiter is fully afflicted. Now that Jupiter is fully afflicted, what we have to do is it spoils the house next to its natal position, which is the second house. Second house is Marakasthanamu, the Kutumbasthanamu, and Dhanasthanamu, all the three functions of the second house. And Jupiter being the 8th house lord spoiling the second house indicates that something pertaining to the 8th house is Marakasthanamu, Maraka, house of death, and the secret affairs. And you can see that if you take the 8th house as Maraka or death, house of death, then the second house will be Marakasthanamu. So when Jupiter spoiled, the 8th house lord has spoiled the second house, so the death will be something that is not normal or abnormal. And if you take the 8th house as the secret affairs, then the second house will be Kutumbasthanamu or Dhanasthanamu, and you can see that the Kutumbasthanamu, he had a secret affairs that has resulted into the Kutumbamu of the family into a different way, and we don't know anything about the wealth related stuff for this particular native. So BSP rules here just gave you a rough idea that this particular native, the 12th house and the second house got thoroughly spoiled. First house, 12th, first and second, all the three houses are thoroughly spoiled, of which the first house, in the first house, the spoiled first house, you have the first house lord, you have the second house lord, you have the 12th house lord, you have the 8th house lord, and then you have the third house lord, Venus. So because of the first house lord being in the first house, the self got spoiled. Because the 12th house lord is in the first house, there is no foreign settlement and his pleasures of bed got spoiled. Because the second house lord is there in the first house, second house is Kutumbam and Dhanasthanamu, we can understand that. Venus, the third house lord, is in the first house and co-joined with the 8th house lord and having the aspect from the natural malefic Saturn. The third house deals with the siblings, and you know the history about his one and only one brother's sibling, Sanjay Gandhi, and it's clearly known how about him.